recognize that Flint, while those circumstances are highly unusual, it is not that unusual to have infrastructure challenges in our communities, particularly the communities where we see environmental justice. That is not as unusual as I would like to think. So we need to broaden the discussion. As much passion and energy as people have brought to the issue in Flint, we need to harness that passion and energy to move beyond Flint and talk more seriously about the challenge of environmental justice, and to talk more seriously about how we learn from this as a mechanism to draw investment and attention in the very communities that need it most, that have the least power to normally be able to draw that investment and that help that they so desperately need. So we have an obligation not just to address Flint, but we have an obligation to look and have that hard conversation about what is our state of water infrastructure in this country? What is the state of public health and public health disparities in this country? And what investments do we need to put on the table to make this right? Because if you think the only problem in Flint is lead in their drinking water, you are incorrect. And that is the same in many communities. So we are going to start that conversation. We are going to look at the disinvestment that has happened in our communities, the disproportionate impact from pollution that has resulted from that, and we are going to have the difficult conversations about how we make sure that disinvestment is turned around and that we value, once again, our core values of keeping our families safe. That means you have to have clean drinking water. That means you have to have clean air. And it's time we had that serious conversation, because frankly, it's a multi-billion-dollar conversation that is well overdue. Because in this country, drinking water alone, we need about $300 billion to $400 billion of investment between now and 2030. Compared to what? The billion we give it every year today? The maybe $2 billion? It's not going to make it, folks. So if you're worried about Flint repeating itself, you have a good reason to be worried about that, and we need to address that challenge moving forward. So let me talk a little bit more broadly at some of the other work we're doing on environmental justice, because this is really building off the wonderful work that Lisa Jackson did to build environmental justice into the fabric of EPA, and we are going to continue her legacy moving forward. And I think the next person who comes here will do exactly the same thing, because if you want EPA to be a public health agency, this is what you got to do. You got to look at where you need the biggest help, and you've got to drive that forward. I am very proud of the work we're doing on the EJ 2020 Action Agenda. It is going to be a roadmap for us. I have a gigundo meeting tomorrow on this, because everybody in this agency is engaged in this process. I know we have engaged you as well, and we will keep doing that. But we will get that over the finish line, and I want to thank Mustafa, but I also want to thank Matt Tejada and his full team for making sure all of this happens. I want to let you know that Mustafa has reinvigorated the larger environmental justice interagency work group that was set up originally during the Clinton administration, and we are not just waking them up, but we actually have federal family working together on issues of environmental justice, where before they may have run away from that table, now they're coming to that table with a positive attitude of how we work together to benefit all of the missions of our agencies, because this president is demanding it and we want to deliver it. And it is a unique time. Extraordinarily proud of the Youth Educate, Motivate, and Innovate Climate Justice Initiative. It is so cool what you guys are doing, and it just raises up a level of understanding about climate that gets us way past denial and into what does the future look like and who are we going to let shape that? Is it going to be the climate deniers, or is it going to be our kids that have to live in that future? I want it to be our kids, because they won't deny their own future. They know what the science says, and they're getting active, and I couldn't be more excited that we have diverse young voices speaking about this issue, because they'll drag the rest of us kicking and screaming into this conversation. And it is a wonderful thing to see. Now, I want to also mention a couple of other things, only I know I'm talking too long. I want to mention a couple of other things. Making a visible difference effort that we're doing at EPA. We call it MVD for short. And I could give you some examples, and maybe I'll give you a couple. But this is an effort for EPA itself to get engaged in our understanding of two things. One is that while we do big national things, we do big national things to actually make sure that every community moves forward. I do not do rules for the sake of doing rules. I want it to be on-the-ground improvement where you live and where everybody lives. Making a visible difference is a reminder that that is our job. We don't move nations, we move communities. We move families. It gives a touchstone for the people in my agency to remind them of just how vital our work is and what that can mean for everybody. And the second thing it does for us is it allows us to leverage the energy of other agencies in the pocketbooks of other agencies to move communities forward. Because I know that many of the work we're tackling in these 50 communities, we do not have an easy solution to those issues. In many ways, they're not even EPA's issue. But what I know about EPA is nobody is better at convening a table with a variety of people around if we just have to stop being afraid that we're raising questions that we can't answer. And if we drag other agencies to the table with us, we will fill their coffers up of grant applications that will actually make them feel good and meet their mission. That's what MVD is all about. That's what making a visible difference is all about. Connecting those dots instead of working with our own bureaucracies. Let me give you a little hint of one. We're working with the St. Regis Mohawk tribe. And the St. Regis had an issue where they actually wanted to get people together because one of their major priorities was to decommission an old dam. Now, if you know about EPA, that ain't our work. We don't decommission dams. But what they did is they basically gave us a heads up that they were having trouble with FERC. We dragged FERC to the table. I shouldn't say dragged, I mean that not literally. We got them excited and interested. And they actually sped up the process and got it decommissioned, which for the tribe was a big deal. But as a result of that conversation, we started also talking about their health problems. And we got regional staff to follow up with the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration, which we call HRSA. And they had a meeting with community leaders and the health administration staff. And now the community is getting assistance to apply for health care funding under a program that they knew never existed before. The community discovered grant options worth as much as $4 million a year to fund the existing tribal clinic, which serves 9,500 people. Now, we never would have in the past said, I got a dam issue. Well, I would say I got this dam issue. I got a dam issue, and I got a health care issue, and EPA is going to embrace that challenge. We're doing it now, because we know that you can get rid of pollution in many different ways beyond EPA's national rules. You can listen to what's important, envision a future. And we know that poverty and pollution go hand in hand. If we can break that chain, no matter who brings that issue to the table, then we can have success moving forward. Now, I want to congratulate everybody on EJ Screen. I know it took us a while to get there, but wow, what a popular little tool this is. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's awesome. The next version even better. We have hosted more than 200 public events at the community level. Now we're launching our DW maps. When you see that, that is going to be so cool. We're building an ability to exchange information and for other people to use that in a way that's going to keep the momentum moving forward. So lastly, let me mention one more thing. I know many of you have been working on issues of climate change and bringing tremendous voices to that table. I do not want you to be discouraged by the recent news that the Supreme Court stayed our rule. I want you to keep a couple of things in mind. That while we will absolutely pay attention to that stay, this rule on its merits is absolutely solid and will move forward. Be so much fun. I see states continuing their voluntary efforts to move forward. I see utilities recognizing that clean energy is their future, not just our future. The energy level is as high as it's ever been. The optimism is still there. Your voices are still necessary to be at the table, and we will still continue to work these issues like crazy, both domestically and internationally. I just came from a climate cabinet meeting. The president made it clear once again that we are not slowing down. We have 10 months. We are running like crazy. Breathe deep, run fast, get stuff done. That's what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Pointed out where the microphones are. We have probably about 10 minutes for questions. I want to get some of those questions in, as many as I possibly can get in. So please, no presentations, questions. Okay? All right, first this gentleman, where are you from? What's your name, where are you from, and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Ryan Block. I'm from the University of Maryland College Park. Thank you for coming today. My question is, how do we increase private investment in renewable and clean technology in order to combat climate change? And how would we make sure that the communities of lowest incomes get the technology?
Two excellent questions. First of all, there's a couple of different ways to increase investment. I think the administration's pushed very hard. We worked with Congress to extend the investment tax credit for renewable energy. That has been a huge boon to keep things going. And if you wonder where the fastest growing job growth is in the United States of America, it's solar. If you take a look at what wind did last year, it is remarkable. So we are seeing investment happen. The second way you can do it is underpin it with a really good rule. That's the Clean Power Plan. So there will be no sliding back. Now the other issue is just to make sure that we have young people engaged. I think it's enormously important for young people to speak, because if you look at where they want jobs, this is it. And the Clean Energy Incentive Program we built in to the Clean Power Plan was a clear message that we want every community to benefit from a clean energy economy. That means low-income areas. That means folks need it on their houses. They need energy efficiency. They need their prices to stay low, and we can get everything we need if we're smart about it, and we think we have pretty smart.
Thank you for your question. Young man over here.
My name's Evan Miller. I'm from the University of Wisconsin in Green Bay. I'm an undergraduate student there, and I'm also working with a nonprofit in the area on groundwater pollution issues from CAFOs in Kewaunee County. 18 months ago in 2014, October 2014, we submitted a petition to the EPA to enforce Safe Drinking Water Act standards in Kewaunee County. The DNR has shown no action, and working in this community, the residents have lost faith in the EPA to enforce their public health standards. They can't drink from their wells because of all the pollutants. Over 70 pollutants have been violated. What would you say to these residents who haven't been able to drink their water for a few years?
Well, I think we recognize that pollution from agriculture is a significant challenge, not just to groundwater, but certainly surface water. And it's the Great Lakes is a good example. That we know that that's what's happening in the Western Lake Erie. And so we have to address this challenge. We're working really hard with USDA. You know, I would recognize a couple of things. One is I can look at the issue, the local issue you've identified. If I can get your name and number, I'll follow up on it. But I think one of the challenges we have is to explain that there are some very progressive members of the agriculture community who know how to do